Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Toby Cordeliu. I am the Director of Enrollment Management and Strategic Initiatives for the MSc program here at Northwestern University, and very excited today to have Dr. Amy Hauenstein with us. She is the Director of Curriculum and Non-Degree Programs for the MSc program, and is going to be walking us through the curriculum itself in more detail for all of you, and excited to turn that over to her. We are going to have a presentation and then with kind of Q&A at the end. So we have you all muted at this point, so you'll be able to participate in the question and answer utilizing the chat. Feel free to submit any questions as we move through, or wait till the end. It's entirely up to you. But Amy, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Toby. Hi, everyone. So nice to meet you. I have a handful of slides to share with you to walk you through a talk about the MSc curriculum. And then, as Toby said, I'll stop sharing and we can see each other and just chat about any questions you have or anything that I can clear up. Get started here. As Toby said, I'm Amy Hauenstein. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Non-Degree Programs and a faculty member. I teach in both the hybrid leadership program and the custom leadership program. I've been with MSc since 2013, and I look forward to talking with you today. So I want to first start by talking about our core curricular themes. We have three learning themes in the program, and everything we do is tethered back to one or more of these themes. The first is managing complexity. And what we mean by that is that today's business landscape rewards individuals who can respond to and embrace complexity. Complexity looks very different in 1986 when the program first graduated its first cohort of students than it does today. And the timeless curriculum that we teach in the program really adapts and evolves as the landscape of practice does. But as our students graduate, they become masters at managing complexity. Also at collaborative leadership. And this is not just being a good team member or being a good leader, but it's knowing how teams work and function, knowing how to put together the optimal team, how to use cross-functional expertise, and then how to both lead and be a team member. And those are different qualities, different skills, different perspectives to take on the way that collaborations work. Now, sometimes these are within an organization, sometimes these are with external partnerships, and sometimes these have nothing to do with your work life, but are more about your passions and interests outside of work and harnessing networks of knowledge that you have access to. And then last but certainly not least is elegant communication. And the portion here that's really important to us is the elegant piece. As humans who use language, we communicate all day long, verbally, non-verbally, in writing, in our relationships, in our workplaces. And what we really care about is how can we be critical? How can we be thoughtful? How can we be empathetic? How can we motivate people to believe in us, to follow us, to trust us? And how do we ethically then get them to move the way we want them to move? So communication as a tool and not simply just an everyday practice. Another portion of our curriculum is something we call categories of knowledge. And we have three categories of knowledge that you'll be wrestling with as graduate students in the MSc program. The first is conceptual knowledge, and each of our core curricular themes is broken down by these, as you can see indicated here in the circle. Conceptual knowledge is what the world-renowned educators, the researchers and instructors, the industry experts that you get to call colleagues in the program bring to the classroom. They are synthesizing often decades, sometimes centuries of communication scholarship, theory, practice, and presenting to you over the course of a quarter the best of the best. So you're relying on their expertise to really curate the experience of conceptual knowledge. Now, conceptual knowledge is only useful to us when we can apply it. And that's where applied knowledge is. And this is where it becomes really sort of bi-directional in the classroom. So conceptual knowledge you can think of as these, again, world-renowned leaders, faculty members, bringing it to the classroom and sharing with you to engage in. And then applied knowledge is the partnership between you and them, the partnership between you and your colleagues, your cohort. And that's, how does this look in the real world? How have these theories, how have these concepts applied, been applied in organizations in your lives? We know that theory does not always imply perfect practice. If we did, we'd be all experts at this. So this is where we say, okay, well, that's a really lovely theory on paper, but you know what? In my organization, it did not go that way. We could not have predicted it. And then you can really dissect where the speed bumps were, the things that you might have done differently. And then again, a third category, and here it's the biggest of the three for us, because the MSc program believes that to master the art of communication, you must be able to produce it. You have to be able to do something with it that you couldn't do before you came to MSc. So this sort of marriage of conceptual and applied knowledge is the curriculum, but then the training grounds of becoming a master communicator is through all of the exercises, through all of the activities, through the group work, through the coaching, through the mentorship of producing the work that you'll complete over the course of the year. We want you to be able to produce something brand new for yourself in your own context. We want you to be a producer of managing complexity, collaborative leadership, and elegant communication. So this is sort of the high level view of our curriculum. And then we have some nitty gritty view too. And those are our learning outcomes. And there's lots of learning science and evidence that shows that when students know what to expect, that they learn it better, faster, and deeper. And MSc spent the better part of a year really working with expert faculty, with industry leaders, with executive recruiters from Fortune 500 companies, and with staff members, thinking about what is it that we want students to be able to know, do, believe, and value. And we call those our learning outcomes. There are 6 of them. And these are our promises to you. This is what you are buying, for lack of a better word. You will be able to articulate the connections between the field of communication and our core themes. You'll be able to demonstrate the ability to assess complex organizational environments and achieve communication goals. Address complex challenges by collaboratively leading teams across disciplines, distances, and sectors. Apply communication-centered scholarship to strengthen effectiveness. This is a real key one. When we were working with industry leaders and recruiters, they wanted to know that someone who holds our degree, they could almost guarantee that we would know how to apply the conceptual knowledge, apply it in applied knowledge, and then produce something. We want evidence-based choices. We want to know that you can critically analyze messages and then create and deliver elegant messages appropriate to the audience purpose and context. Now, these were really tangible pieces of things. We could see you do them. We could see you develop the skills to master them by the end of the program. But then there was a whole section of conversation and dialogue around this sort of team that was working on this that said, you know what, it's not enough to be able to do, tactically do um, skills and produce knowledge. We want to know that our leaders are different kinds of leaders. So we went ahead and we developed 4 dispositions that we believe are really critical to someone leading in organizations. And that's iteratively developing interprofessional leadership competencies. And we have an entire list of these. It's things like humility, empathy, inclusion, ethics. We want to know that you can utilize communication to embrace complexity and difference. It's sort of sacrimonious that today is the day we're all waiting on the results of the election to be talking about embracing complexity and difference, the importance of that to move organizations forward. And then to choose to communicate with ethical intention and evaluate the virtuous elements of any communication situation. Lastly, be equipped to influence change. These are feelings, these are behaviors, these are ideals, maybe ideologies that we can't say, you got a B- in the ability to influence change. But these are things that we definitely talk about. There are things that are laced in between all of the classes, reiterated in our co-curriculum. These are behaviors and ideas that we want to reinforce of anyone who holds our degree. So you have a combination of the tactical, those 6 very sought after skills, this idea of being a more ethical and inclusive leader, being able to be a change agent in all kinds of situations are really important to the MSC curriculum. So how do we do it? We do it through all of your courses. Your courses, the core courses in all of the classes are tied to all 3 core curricular themes. The courses all focus on a handful, usually 2 to 3 of the learning outcomes and dispositions. And through the entire program, then you are working on mastering these. The way we measure if you've mastered them is through your capstone project. And we have another talk dedicated to the capstone project, but it really is a self-study in leadership, a self-study in who you are, a self-study in your personal brand narrative, how the world sees you, and how you see the world sort of intersect in the capstone. And we tell the story about that. You do this through meeting expert faculty that only a university as prestigious as Northwestern has. Co-curricular programs. I know there's another talk on those, but we have an entire suite of programs that outside of the courses help you really fine tune and create mastery in each one of those learning outcomes and dispositions. You have access to the MSC staff, many of whom are MSC graduates, and the MSC Alumni Association are all very active in the program. When you sort of see this entire network, you can understand how immersing yourselves in this curriculum, and we think of the curriculum as this entire page here. This is how you get to the end. This is how you get to be a Master of Science in Communication alumni. And then last but not least, we really focus in on leadership and management through effective communication. And we think about leadership as being a visionary, being able to think big thoughts, being innovative, being creative, with evidence to back that up, being mindful and ethical. And then at the same time, management skills. That's the nuts and bolts. How do you really get it done? How do you give directives? How do you lead team meetings? How do you give and get feedback? So leadership we think of as a much broader, more philosophical, ideological place, management, the more tactical, strategic place. And then our impetus is that you do those things through effective communication. And that is our curriculum in a nutshell. We have a series of classes that you get to be immersed in. You get to talk with all of the professors. You get to call them part of your network. Most of them have you, I think all of them have you calling them by their first names. They become part of your network. And it's a pretty cool experience to come out the other side with not just the faculty and the staff, but each other who are in all different kinds of industries, all different kinds of situations that, see the same experience as you differently. And you get to learn through that diversity.
That's great. Thank you, Amy. At this time, we're more than happy to answer any questions that you have about anything Amy's just talked about or the curriculum. With regards to the curriculum, feel free to type any questions that you have into the chat. While people are putting their questions together, Amy, one question that I get from time to time, I guess kind of into the curriculum, is a little bit about the delivery of the material in general, right? And I think that teaching methods are as diverse as the people that teach them. But can you talk a little bit about how content is specifically delivered, or the range anyway that exists within the MSc faculty?
Yeah, sure. So most of our faculty have been teaching with MSc for a decade or more, which I think is a really cool um, piece to note, and that they choose to teach for MSc. Um, as Toby said, a lot of the, courses are taught in very different ways. But for the most part, faculty know that you're practitioners. They know that in some cases they're the translator between sort of deep academic research and folks who are out in organizations making communication happen, moving teams. And they really are interested in meeting you where you are rather than having you come to where they are. So, we sort of joke that they're in a lot of cases called lecturettes. Like there's a 20-minute lecture and then there's 30 minutes of doing something with that information. So there's a lot of give and take of that conceptual and applied. It's kind of a dance in most classes. So they're going to be delivering some of those concepts and themes, and then they're going to be asking you to apply them in real time. They're going to give you case studies of places that they've seen those concepts and themes play out and have you analyze it from your lens. And I think the applied part that I mentioned being sort of bi-directional or multi-directional, because it's also coming from your classmates, is that, you're sitting in a classroom with someone who's a teacher and someone who's a nurse and someone who's a marketing exec and someone who's in social media. And the way that those are applied in different industries look very different. And you can really get some creative ideas about like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of doing it that way because it's, not necessarily a standard practice in my industry, but I bet I could, tweak it just a little bit and make it work. So I really think it's the dance between those two, conceptual and applied knowledges. And then, of course, handing it over to you and saying like, fly little birdies, right? You have to do something with it. You have to be able to apply it for yourself. So it could be group projects. It could be giving a speech. It could be creating a marketing plan. It could be writing a case yourself, dissecting a case, applying, answering questions about how you would analyze something using a new framework that you've just learned. So as Toby said, faculty are as diverse as the rest of the, world's population, and they have their own approach to things, but but by and large, the entire curriculum is about doing something.
And I think it's important to highlight something that you mentioned earlier, which is that also the diversity that's represented in the student body, right? Like the way the curriculum is designed is such a great complement to, and really lends itself to making sure that people from many different professional backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, academic backgrounds are able to share their knowledge, and that really, increases the learning experience for everybody. Malik asks, with regards to the co-curricular programming, what kinds of courses are offered? I do want to preface this by saying next week, shameless plug, next Wednesday, same time, is 30 minutes dedicated to co-curricular programming. So our Assistant Director, Anne-Marie Adams, is going to be talking about that. But Amy, view from 30,000 feet, co-curricular programming.
Yeah, so each quarter is really dedicated to one of those core curricular themes. So for instance, in the CLP, the fall quarter is all about collaborative leadership. And your core class is called Leading Collaboration. And co-curricular programming is generally in some way tied to that. So it might be cross-sector partnerships, or it might be guest speakers or guest workshops. We also have an ongoing co-curricular non-credit course called Creative Branding and Design. It's basically Branding 101 for non-designers, where you learn some basics of Photoshop, and you learn about color theory and choosing fonts and how to visually put together a presentation. So I won't steal next week's thunder too much, but do know that it's our co-curriculum ranges from like a 2-hour guest speaker to full-on workshops to a year-long study of learning some design skills.
I like it. Vera asked a question: how's the curriculum teach digital communication and tech-based strategic communication? And so I think that you talked a little bit earlier about the timeliness and timelessness of the curriculum, and but getting into very specific industries, etc. What do you have to say?
Yeah, so a lot of the classes ask you to design your own midterm or design your own final project, where you get to choose, sort of hone in using the concepts and theories that really are timeless. That's really where our curriculum is dedicated to, things that aren't fads or going to go out of fashion very quickly. You can imagine if we taught a class on MySpace analytics 10 years ago, that would be completely outdated today. So we don't have anything that is super tech platform based, but we do have the flexibility for you to choose a tech-based strategic communication final project by using timeless strategies and working angles there. Many of the faculty have human-computer interaction and media technology and society backgrounds. Their own PhDs are in those. So they are the leading edge of researchers in tech-based strategic communication. So they welcome those sort of conversations. And that's one of the ways that we think about our curriculum and the assignments that you do. We think of them as conversations between you and the faculty. So one of your final assignments or a major conversation you might have with faculty might take one of those angles, and that's a way that you can get at that. Now, some of the more timely pieces, meaning sort of cutting edge, pressing, the newest, hippest thing, shows up in our co-curriculum. So we might have someone who, is a TikTok strategist or influencer come in and chat with you in more of that sort of one-off co-curriculum space. So we try to find ways to marry, again, the timely and timeless concepts and theories that you want to know about.
Wonderful, thank you. We've got a couple different questions about current times, right? And so the past 9 months have been crazy. The MSC transition from the Saturday in-person traditional class to fully virtual. Can you talk, and I think that MSC was uniquely prepared to be able to do that, right? Having been delivering online coursework for the past few years. But can you talk a little bit? I know you were on the front lines of that transition, and I think that there are trade-offs, obviously, between in-person and online learning, and just kind of what that transition looked like, and what put you on the spot here. You think what it's going to look like here moving forward?
Yeah. So as Toby said, we were in sort of, we certainly weren't to a place that we could take a deep breath and say, business as usual, but we were ahead of the curve compared to many programs because we did have a hybrid version of our program to start with. So for us, what we've done is we've tried to, well, we're living in this world also. So it didn't take much to have empathy into what everyone was going through. So we were able to recreate the program, restructure the program to have several different delivery models so that students could still get absolutely 100% of the program in a delivery model that worked for them. So right now we have some that is completely asynchronous, meaning you log in when you have time. The professors have loaded lectures and there are discussion boards so that it replicates classroom conversation. Those discussion boards are sometimes done through video, so it's not always you just typing comments in a chain. Sometimes it's meeting with other classmates and coming up with something together. We have sort of a hybrid version where there's some preparation work that's asynchronous and some live work, and then we have full-on live sessions. And for our hybrid program, it was largely asynchronous to start with. We have 4 what had been on campus live in resident sessions. And we've been able to sort of seamlessly move those into virtual live seminars. And in some cases, we've broken them apart so that, coming to campus and being immersed for 8 hours in something that's really highly interactive is one thing. Sitting in front of a computer screen, engaging in technology for 8 hours is another. So we've done some tweaking of that schedule to make it a little more easy to consume and making sure that your brain is able to process all that's going on. But it really took us the spring of last year to find our bearings. By summer, we felt like that we were back to full tilt. And this fall, we hit the ground running. I think we have more options than we've ever had. In fact, many of the changes we made, I think that will keep forever because so much of what we did turned into a new plan A instead of a plan B.
That is great. Thank you so much, Amy. We are at the 12:30 mark. We try to promise to keep these as on time as possible. We have a couple other questions that have come in that aren't specific to the curriculum. I want to let those folks know that I'm going to respond to you. I'm going to send you email responses to your questions about the MSC network and career services. And as Amy mentioned, we also have another recording of a deep, in-depth look into the capstone as well. So thank you everybody for your time today, and thank you for your questions. A little housekeeping to wrap up, just so everybody is aware, we do have a couple deadlines coming up for applications. And if you are interested in starting with the MSc program this January, your application deadline is December 1st. If you're interested in starting next fall, our first application deadline for fall applicants is December 8th. As an incentive to encourage you to apply sooner rather than later, we have offered application fee waivers to anybody that can complete their application before November 30th. So it is so save you $40 by applying by November 30th to the program. If anybody has any follow-up questions for Amy, please feel free to submit those to the MSC email and we will forward those on to her, msc@northwestern.edu, msc@northwestern.edu. And we'll be sure to get those in. Thank you again very much to Amy for joining us today. It was highly informative. I always learn something when I listen to you talk about the curriculum as well. But thank you for everyone again for joining, and I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.